Well, welcome everybody to the TwitchCon 2018 panel on integrating speedrunning content as a variety streamer. Before we really get started talking about what we wanted to talk about today, we're going to do a few quick introductions. So I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Author Blues. I am the panel moderator. I'll just let them go down the line.
Yeah, I'm Spike Pachita. I would describe myself as a variety speedrunner. Been speedrunning for about 4 or 5 years now on Twitch.
Hi, I'm Skybills. I'm also a variety speedrunner, and I'm one of your TwitchCon 2018 ambassadors. Been speedrunning for about 4 to 5 years or so.
I'm Jacku. I'm a variety streamer. I speedrun occasionally, but I'm mainly a developer as well.
I'm Sinister1. I work for Twitch as the community program manager for speedrunning, and I am, of course, a speedrunner myself since 2009.
Woo. Awesome. Well, before we talk about some of the ways that we can actually do this, the goal is to discuss what can you integrate into your actual content. We want to start off with talking about a little bit about why you might be interested in using speedrunning content. So what are the challenges that you might face as a variety streamer that speedrunning content can help to address a little bit? And one of the first things that I think we wanted to talk about was actually the possibility of standing out. It can be a little bit of a challenge on Twitch these days. I mean, how many of you on the panel have actually tried streaming new content and found that it sort of drowns you out?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, everyone's going to try to jump on the latest game, and all the top streamers are going to be there. So unless you're absolutely amazing at the game, you're probably going to be way down on the bottom of the list.
And one thing that is nice, though, is like there's a game, or say there's a new game that comes out that it's going to be really popular within the speedrunning community. Like when Super Mario Odyssey came out, people are already looking for, all right, these Mario 64 speedrunners, other speedrunners, I want to see them play it at a high level, which will actually push you up the directory in that instance.
Right. So, I mean, one of the biggest issues is that trends do tend to change pretty quickly. And so even if you're following along with whatever the biggest game is at the time, whatever the new games are, those trends change. So as you invest yourself into them, you're constantly running the risk of those falling off over time. And so it can be very challenging to keep up with what's actually going on out there. So if you are a Fortnite streamer, for instance, and you're playing Fortnite, even on a mid-afternoon, this photograph was taken on a mid-afternoon, like Monday afternoon, you have to be more than 22,000 viewers to top the charts. I mean, that's completely unheard of for a lot of streamers. Even to be featured in this picture, you would have needed more than 1,000 viewers on a Monday afternoon. So that can be pretty challenging. So one of the other things that we really want to address is the way that Twitch's features can really help with improving the visibility of your stream. So why would you be interested in using speedrunning content? Well, a lot of Twitch's new features, the tag system, some of the new features that are even coming out, that if you attended the keynote, there were the squad streams that were just recently announced, the ability to combine streams. A lot of those play up to the strengths of speedrunners. Things like the tags. Have you guys noticed that with new features, the tag system, that's increased your viewership in any way? Has that helped people find you? Has anyone said that the tags have really done have really helped out with that?
It says something to me that when they initially announced the tag system, that the example they used, so if you're a speedrunning streamer, then you're going to be using that. I feel like speedrunning is one of the easiest tags to search through to like find that very specific content. And it's one of those where, like we said, with Fortnite, you're going to be scrolling for like, your computer's probably going to blow up by the time you reach the bottom. But for like speedrunning, you could scroll not for too long and you can find all the streams there, all the different games. I definitely feel like I've seen increased viewership, and hopefully some amount of that is from the tag system.
I would say the randomizer tag system is also very good because it distinguishes yourself from people who just might be doing speedruns of the game, and that way they can find you amongst a crowd of speedrunners of the vanilla version of that game.
Yeah, it does seem like a lot of those tags have really played to the strengths of speedrunners. When they were announced, a lot of things were notably missing, and they've continued to adopt them over time. But we started out with like 15 different tags you could tag your stream with for speedruns, from what category you were playing to how much glitching you were doing to was this a world record attempt or a personal best attempt or just what type of content you were producing. It seemed like it really played to the strength of speedruns. And not only that, but even outside of Twitch, there are a lot of resources for finding streams. I mean, how many of us really got our start with things like Speedruns Live? You know, once you finally got your stream listed on Speedruns Live, like that was the big deal. You were now very visible. And now that, you know, even Speedruns Live has maybe taken a back seat to speedrun.com, speedrun.com helps a lot with visibility. You have this website that categorizes all of these leaderboards. It puts everything together. And on top of just going to the leaderboard and finding the world record holder for the game that you want to watch, you can also just go to their streams directory and see the list of streams that are playing the games that they're playing, ones that are specifically tailored towards speedrunning. So there's a lot of tools out there for speedrunners to actually improve their visibility and make your stream more accessible. Even if you're a streamer who has 2, 3, 5, 10 viewers on average, that increase in visibility can be the jump you need from 5 to 10 or from 10 to 20. And that kind of jump is monumental at that level, so that can really help.
And I would also say that just by virtue of speedrunning a game, other speedrunners will watch your stream. I promise you this. Like, whichever game you choose, there's going to be other people that speedrun that game. They're going to come in, they're going to watch, they're going to talk with you, they're going to be excited.
The speedrun community is a very supportive community that loves. I know, Sinister, you run Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. If someone all of a sudden, one random viewer with one viewer decided to start running it, you're jumping in that channel, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the speedrunning community tends to be very supportive in that way. So if I hear about some game that I've played recently and someone else starts playing it, I'm going to be there, you know, not necessarily backseating, but just giving tips, trying to help push forward and, you know, send my viewers there even. That can be a big asset to them. My viewers are already attuned to watching that sort of thing. I say, if you're interested in that, go check out this other stream out there that's doing that sort of content. That can be pretty helpful when it comes to speedrunning is that the content has a lot of longevity. So whereas we started off talking about how the content, the trends change rapidly. So if you're playing a game and you invest heavily in it and suddenly the trend, you know, the winds change direction and this other game has increased in visibility, speedrunning tends to be more immune to that. So speedrunning, the content that you create is more evergreen in that sense. You can take one game and whereas that might previously have only been 2, 3, 5 streams worth of content, that can now be a month, 2 months, a year worth of content if you really are having a great time and you're investing yourself in it. And there's a lot of opportunity for things like that. There's a lot of opportunity for finding a game you love and that your stream loves, and you say, you know, I'm enjoying this game and my stream's enjoying this game, but the game's over. Like, where do I go from here? Speedrunning can be a natural sort of next step to that. You can say, I've beaten this game, I had a great time playing it, let's play it again and do it faster.
Yeah, speedrunning has this, I mean, the reason why games like Fortnite and other competitive games are so popular is because they're different every time you do it. All of a sudden, you're taking this game that might only be like Super Mario World, maybe there's like 10 hours of content in that game, maybe not even that much, and all of a sudden you can find an almost infinite amount of hours by continually creating new goals for yourself, new PBs you need to get to, and a storyline that your viewers can kind of go on that journey with you for.
Yeah, that's a great point. It actually has a lot to do with setting these milestones and saying these both short and long-term goals that viewers can sort of, like you said, go along for the ride. You can say, you know, we're now working toward getting the top 20 on this leaderboard. We're now working toward, you know, breaking the 1-hour barrier in this game. And your viewers are going to go along for that ride. As you get closer, there's more excitement building up to that. And that can be really, really great for community growth.
Where you need to be challenging for a world record or anything like that. If people see that you're improving on your own time, that's what they get excited about. That's what viewers can really, you know, like they said, be along for the ride with and just really enjoy.
For sure.
And on the note of longevity as well, make sure 2 things. You really enjoy the game because you might be playing it for years. I mean, my friend Mitch Flower Power, how many years has he been on Mario 3?
8, 10, something like that?
Yeah.
Like he was born playing it.
And then the second point is the reset button that tells 1,000 words there. Make sure you really love your stage 1 music and background music because if it's something that's gonna grate, might be something you want to think about in terms of content, especially this 8-bit thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and sort of flowing into that next point, you know, nostalgia can play a big role. You know, we do tend to shy away from talking about nostalgia too much. There's a lot in the speedrunning community where people try to oversell themselves with nostalgia, but it cannot be understated what a driving force that is for viewers and people who would otherwise engage in your stream. The content that they are most familiar with is the content that they're going to attach to most heavily. So if it's a game that people grew up playing, and it's a game that people have a lot of fondness for. I mean, people have fondness for Fortnite, but they don't remember playing Fortnite with their father as a child, right? I mean, so taking a game that people have fond memories of from their childhood can be a huge block for your stream. It can really make the difference between a game that someone comes by and says, wow, or I'm really enjoying this, or I'm enjoying the streamer, to wow, this really just takes me back, bringing back a flood of positive memories. And it can help for you too. It can help for you finding the sort of content that you attach to as well. If it's the sort of game that you played as a kid and you said, I just never beat it, or it was too hard for me, or just, you know, I otherwise just have good memories of this game, going back to that in the future can make a big difference.
Games Done Quick, I'm assuming everyone in this room is probably familiar with it. That is an event that went from Mikuyama's basement 8 years ago to it is raising millions of dollars twice a year, potentially even more in there right now. And it is completely built on nostalgia. As people are just saying, oh, if you scroll through the most popular games, it's Fortnite, it's Dota, it's all these massive games today. People say, oh, people are going to stream Zelda games. People are going to speedrun, not even Mario and Zelda games, like smaller game series as well, just smaller Super Nintendo games and whatnot. Everything's built on nostalgia for an event that raises millions.
Yeah. Have you guys found that you've had a lot of people come into your streams and sort of, I feel like a lot of times when I stream, people will tell me the stories from their childhood. Do you feel like people are making those same sort of connections with you?
One of the most exciting things, I think, and you kind of touched on it earlier, is for people that like, oh, I never beat this game, and then, you know, maybe now they're going to go out and beat it. They're going to kind of replay it and share that with you. So that's another thing that's really great.
Yeah, like I speedrun. The one game I speedrun is Yo Noid. You know, it's the top game for the NES, obviously. Most people that come and watch that are like, I remember this game, I remember that mascot, whatever happened to that guy, and it's bringing back memories. Don't
That
Google
is a story for a different panel.
Don't Google it. But like it just has people remember that game and like are like, this is amazing. And as a kid, I never was able to get past level 3, and now I have the world record in it. So that could be you too.
Rags to riches.
Yeah.
So before we move on from this, these two pictures here are actually Skybill's receiving Super Mario All-Stars for Christmas, and Blue Bob SRL, which is one of the top runners of Super Mario 64 now, he graciously contributed his photo to this slide deck. So, you know, actual speedrunners actually loving these games and then going on to do things with them in their adult years.
How old were you in that photo, Sky?
Oh, probably about 4 or 5 years old.
Aww. We can get one big aww. So now that we've definitely convinced you that speedrunning is the correct way to go, the next question is, how do you start getting involved in speedrunning? Because we've heard stories, all of us, definitely, about how it feels daunting to get into speedrunning. And in reality, it's not necessarily a question of getting in on the ground floor, but people set their sights very high initially. They say, you know, I just can't compete with such and such. Well, of course you can't compete with such and such because that person has been speedrunning this game for 5 years. But you can certainly start, and everyone starts somewhere. I mean, just to get kicked off here a little bit, sort of the first approach to speedrunning is definitely what, I think we would refer to as pure speedrunning. A lot of people say, you know, it's just too daunting to really get started with it. But here's the real secret that no one ever tells you. If you want to be a speedrunner, here's what you do. Play the game, time yourself, now you're a speedrunner. You've done it. You've overcome the biggest hurdle of the entire process. You are now officially a speedrunner. Feel free to put that on your business card, wherever you want it. The thing is that if you set realistic goals, it doesn't have to be daunting. When I first started speedrunning Super Mario World 5 years ago, I wasn't very good. And I said, I want to break the 1 hour, 40-minute mark. I want to just beat the game in an hour and 40 minutes. And that took me a very long time to get to that point. But my stream went along for the ride with me. They were excited to see me make that progress. And when finally one day I did beat that 140 mark, it was a huge success for me. My chat rallied around behind me and said, what's the next goal? Where are we going next? They were excited for that progress to continue happening. And you can have that too. You know, this is definitely the rawest form of speedrunning, but it is also, in that sense, one of the most common, and people are excited to see that sort of thing. You know, do you guys have any personal stories of overcoming those hurdles yourselves?
One, I know Sinister and I both run Mega Man 2 or Rock Band 2, and I remember years ago watching a really amazing speedrunner, Cypher, do runs of it like 4 years ago, and watching him doing all these crazy zipping through the stage and these boss quick kills, and I thought to myself, I could never do that. I was already a speedrunner, and I was still putting those limitations on myself. And I've been speedrunning for years at that point. And finally, a couple years ago, they had a tournament for it. I started doing it and going, oh, okay, a lot of these actually aren't that hard to do. It's obviously really hard to get a world record, but that should never be your goal starting out. Maybe if it's Yonoid or something, I don't know. Like, maybe if that's... I'm just saying.
Yonoid is very RNG heavy, and
I'm sure it's brutal.
You have to put in the time.
it's nothing about skill, it's just time.
Spike, I think I caught that heat you just sent to Josh.
Sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, all of a sudden you can, like, don't put limitations on yourself. That obviously amazing human being who's run a bunch of different games at GDQs. He always said, I'm not just going to say you can do anything. Those are just empty words. But I bet you if you get started and you start working towards a goal, your limitations are not nearly as low as you think they are. And all of a sudden I was doing things like in Mega Man 2 or any of the other games I've run where I thought to myself, months ago before I started, I probably never would have thought I was at that point. It's amazing how many things that are really hard looking are actually some of the easier things to do, and you can look really cool to your Twitch chat.
Yeah, that's the biggest speedrunning secret. So don't go sharing it with everyone. But the reality is that all the things that we do that look pretty cool, you can do them too. I mean, there's nothing innately special about any one of us except for Sinister. You know, you can do really just anything you put your mind to. So I think the next big one is, and this is where we start to talk a little bit more about things that are more and more removed from pure speedrunning. And this is where I think as a variety streamer, you can really find your mark to make. You can really find your niche to carve out yourself. So the first one is talking a little bit about ROM hacks. So ROM hacks are of varying difficulties out there. They take some of your favorite games and your viewers' favorite games, and they make modifications to them to create a brand new experience. So you get that dual feeling of both being familiar with it already, but it being a pure blind experience, something brand new to you. And one of the things that you really have to overcome when you start to talk about ROM hacks is that a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that ROM hacks are synonymous with difficult. One of the most famous ROM hack series is the Kaizo Mario series, which I'm not encouraging a single one of you to go out and take a crack at right now. They're incredibly challenging games. But that being said, Super Mario World Central, which is where that little screenshot's taken from, now lists more than 1,000 different ROM hacks just of the Super Mario World game. So if you're looking for some content to create and you say, I love Super Mario World, but boy, I just do not want to play any Super Mario World. First off, agreed. But second, you can find a lot more Super Mario World related things. We were talking about, when we were setting up this panel, we were talking about you know, the difficulty. Kaizo Mario is maybe a little bit unattainable for someone who's brand new to this, but I mentioned, you know, my favorite ROM hack of Super Mario World is a game called Return to Dinosaur Land, which is at exactly the same difficulty level as the original Super Mario World game, just brand new, interesting levels. You don't have to jump into the deep end. I think that's the thing that you really have to learn, is that you don't have to jump in at the deepest point. You can really find your niche. And there's a huge following for ROM hacks these days. There's a huge following for people who speedrun ROM hacks. There's a huge following for people who play difficult ROM hacks. The following is out there, and you can get, you know, the piece of that pie. You can play them. It's not too hard to actually get in on the ground floor. There's people who are doing races, who are doing runs of them. And this sort of leads naturally into Mario Maker, you know?
Yeah, Mario Maker came out like 3 years ago on the Nintendo Wii U, and a lot of people thought that was gonna kill like the ROM hacking world for Mario, at least, but it only did good. It put the tools in the hands of a lot of players to see like, hey, you can create levels, and everyone was like asking for more, and it led to ROM hacking, and just that number boosted tremendously for sure.
Yeah, I can't imagine that number was much higher than 500 before Super Mario Maker. I really think it did blow up the ROM hacking scene. It was what you were saying before about people wanted to make the games and they realized how limited the Super Mario Maker tools were, and they said, well, let's have a better tool set then. Let's work with the original game.
Yeah, Nintendo did a good job making it easy, but it's actually fairly easy to do a lot of the stuff with the tools that the communities have released as well. And just taking that first step really helped show that. So thanks, Nintendo.
So talking a little bit about ROM hacks, probably one of the most popular types of ROM hacks these days are randomizers. So before we talk about all the reasons why you should be playing randomizers, and you probably are already very familiar with randomizers, can we give the introduction, Spike? Tell me the good news about what is a randomizer.
That's a whole panel by itself. But a randomizer is where, and it's different for every game. Like I know Skybills, I know you run Super Mario Brothers 3 randomizer. I've been running the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time randomizer. Like in Ocarina of Time, what we'll do is we take all the items, the songs, medallions, and stones in that game, and we just mix them up where you're gonna find them. You're gonna walk into, open up a chest, and bam, you've got your hammer and just chilling there in the first chest of the game. And all of a sudden, what you're trying to do there is find all the items that you need in order to complete this puzzle of sorts. That once again, like I was saying earlier, is going to be different every single time you do it. You want to tell us a little bit about SMB3 Rando, though?
So for platform randomizers, I mean, if you learn it as a speedrun, you know where things are. In Randomizer, your sites are swapped. So you could be in the middle of a desert and here comes Boss Bass with not a lot of platforms to jump on, just coming right for you. Or the Ink Sun can come through an ice stage and just be like, hey, I'm going to chill out here in this ice cave, deal with me. Anything can happen at any time, any place, and it really shows how much you know concepts of the game. Not necessarily where things are, but like the concept behind the game, some of the ways in which to handle different enemies in different types of climates. So
those definitely tend to be the more approachable type of randomizers as well. That's not to say that they're necessarily easier, but it's a lot more straightforward to get in on it. So if you feel like, you know, I'm sure Spike's going to talk for a second about the Zelda or Venture style randomizers as well, but if you find them to sound a little bit daunting, platforming randomizers can be a lot more approachable. You know, it mixes up where the levels are, mixes up where the enemies are, mixes up where the power-ups are. No easier, but a lot more straightforward to play through.
Absolutely. It's what's fun about a randomizer, what I found in my chat over the last 4 or 5 months I've been doing OOT randomizer, Ocarina of Time, is that there's this nice blend of you can look impressive to your chat, just in your game knowledge and the different like little, Gymnast is here in the audience, and he's a really good Ocarina of Time speedrunner, 3D Zelda runner in general. I'm nowhere near as good as him, but it's cool all these things that I have watched him and other runners do over the years that now I kind of know how to do. They watch you develop that skill set, they watch you develop your knowledge set, but also it's really good for hilarity's sake, is that, like you said, you're gonna be just chilling in an ice cave, and then a sun's gonna shoot down and murder you. It's great. You're gonna be, finding stuff in chests that make absolutely no sense, and you have to do these really weird routing choices all over the place. There's great fails that can happen all over the place. Not to downplay speedrunning, but it's just a great way to, you're truly never going to see, if they miss that one stream, it's kind of like in live theater. You're never gonna see that again. That was only for the audience I had there in front of me. So there's even more reason to show up, as opposed to maybe just say like speedrun attempts, which we're not trying to downplay, but something to think about.
It's kind of cool with randomizers. It's like playing the game again for the first time. When you played Zelda the first time as a kid, you didn't know where anything was, and so with a randomizer, you can do that again. You can do that every night, and it's really kind of cool to get that experience.
So when I had talked at one point to Andy about doing a Link to the Past randomizer, he's one of the best A Link to the Past randomizer speedrunners there are, and when I talked to him, he had mentioned a little bit about how it's actually very nerve-wracking to play against lower skilled players in randomizer. And one of the reasons for that is that really high skilled players, even when they play randomizer, they go in with a plan. They know what they're going to do. Their gameplay looks very similar every single time, and you can count on them to do that. But with lower skilled players, there's a tendency to take a lot more chances, make a lot more risky plays, and for the top players, my understanding is that can be very nerve-wracking, because you might be the #1 seed in your tournament, but you can lose to any person in that tournament if they make the Hail Mary play that gives them that item they needed 30 minutes in, right? So.
And that's what makes it more accessible. Go ahead, Sky.
Well, we see this in also Legend of Zelda 1 randomizer, where you might be able to block clip through a couple of land molas heading for you, and that's great, but if all you find is a wand, and if your opponent decides to go into level 7, one of the biggest levels, and they find the ladder, and you need the ladder to get to Zelda at the end of level 9, it doesn't mean much. So truly, for some of these randomizers, everybody has a chance from all different kinds of skill levels. So I always advise to people, if speedrunning seems a little daunting, maybe pick up the randomizer first, because you could learn tricks from the randomizer that translate to speedrunning, and then again, you're expanding your content that way.
Randomizer is about 33% skill, 33% routing, and about 33% luck. So in that way, I almost describe it as like the poker of speedrunning. Like if I play against Tiger Woods in golf, I will lose 100 out of 100 times. I will not compete. But if I play some of the best poker players in the world, I'm going to win a couple times. A couple of lucky cards will fall out on the table. I'll make some cards, some calls in places where maybe I wasn't supposed to, but I got stupid lucky. That's what makes it accessible, that all of a sudden you can compete with even the really good players.
All right. And with that, I think this actually leads us really naturally into talking about ways to get your stream a little more interactive with it. I noticed that one of the big things with Randomizer is that depending on sort of the feeling of the chat, there's a tendency for people in chat to get really involved with Randomizer. I know I've watched Sky stream a number of times, and there's people theory crafting in the chat saying, I bet this item's going to be here, and they're sort of playing along at home in the capacity that they're able to do. But there are ways to get your chat even more involved. So I think I'm going to throw it over to Jakku for a second.
The hot new extension released this week, Crowd Control, allows your viewers to interact with the game by sending effects to the game live. We have a lot of effects right now, like for Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Your stream, your community could send you rupees and bombs or take them away. There's a lot of trolling available in this extension, and it's all right on your dashboard, super easy to integrate. But it uses bits. They can use it to kill you or help you. So like, it really makes it a new experience each time, and it's even more random than Randomizer because chat's there doing whatever.
And really, Jakku, you haven't seen anything until you see Bowser at the end of Mario 3 with this huge boss bass head and Lakitu throwing spinies at you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of the interesting part is that, up until really this point, if a viewer wanted to troll you, in the polite sense, wanted to troll you, what are their options? You play a really loud hit alert, for instance, right at a tense moment or something like that. You don't have a lot of options for really controlling the game. And there are some games that have actually integrated some of those. And I think that this is really where we're starting to get into the spirit of that, finding ways to incorporate that in maybe older games or more popular games that don't build that in naturally.
Yeah.
For sure. And I guess the really last big one is if you want to take the furthest step away from speedrunning and just sort of keep the spirit of it, I think one of the best to do that is with blind races. So maybe there's some new game coming out, or there's some game that you're nostalgic for and you want to check it out again. One great way to really use the spirit of speedrunning and produce your own content with that can be blind races with that. So you have a game, maybe something brand new came out. I just recently played a game called Tanglewood. A developer just made a game for the Genesis, and we wanted to check it out, but I don't play a lot of games just purely blind on my stream. So I said, hey, these friends over here, let's do a blind race of it. And we pulled the game down. We played it for a few hours. We raced through the game together while we were on a call together. So it really does a great job of helping to combine our communities. I'm on a call with this person. All of their viewers are probably watching my stream as well. So you get that sort of unity in that. Spike, I'm going to let you do the whole thing here. So.
No, so we actually have on there on the screen the reason why we have that. That's MoMAM. It's an event that myself and I Eat Your Pie, another streamer, that we've been doing every March for 3 years now. Plan on keep going with it. And a lot of those are built on, some of them are games that we already know about, some different takes on some games we do, but a lot of it are just blind races. And what I find really fun about blind races are that, say Mega Man 11 just came out, and I just raced against some people in that blind, it's this very unique experience on stream that you can only have once. Where you got this element of the viewers and the runners are all seeing it for the first time. There's also this great competitive aspect because unlike, say, when your speedruns are really practiced, usually when one person builds a lead, unless there's a big choke, there's not really going to be a lead change. Now, all of a sudden, it's like, you have no idea what's coming up. You might see, okay, I'm like an hour behind, but one person gets blocked at a boss, just gets bodied for like an hour, and all of a sudden, things are going to switch places. There's a lot more hilarity involved there. You see me referencing hilarity a lot. And I think blind races are really, really good at that. And you'd be surprised how often those races actually end up being really close, especially if you can find a group of people. Again, myself and Pi did Spyro the Dragon this past year. Yeah, awesome. It's coming out. That's cool. I'm looking forward to it. We had never played that game before, and it was like a 4-hour race, and that sucker, I lost. It's cool. But I lost by 3 seconds right at the end because I couldn't find a dragon statue for like an hour. I'm pretty cool with it now. I'm not angry. But yeah, it was amazing seeing how much chat was exploding, getting excited about, oh my God, we're both running in the final boss at the same time. If either one of us fall, it's very exciting. I think blind races are a really good way to say, I'm going to have no preparation going into this. I'm, like you said, throwing up a timer, I'm playing the game. It's a speed run at that point.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. A lot of these other things that we talk about, pure speedrunning definitely has an investment that you're making. You're prepping in advance, maybe you're practicing on or off stream. There's work that you have to do to make that happen. A blind race is, you were already gonna play it anyway, right? Like, why not just do it maybe?
Slap a timer, dude.
So instead of stopping and admiring the art on the wall, why not just keep going, right? Like, that's the big difference there. And if you're not, maybe you don't feel comfortable organizing your own thing. You don't want to market, you don't want to sell it like Spike and Ite Your Pie did for a month of Mushrooms and Master Swords, or now Mushrooms and Mayhem. Maybe you don't want to market that whole thing. There's tournaments that happen around this idea. So there's, for instance, Mystery Tournament, which is run by some of the great people at Speedruns Live. That's a tournament that happens like once or twice a year. It's actually pretty frequent. You can almost always find one going on. They're super attainable goals. Every single match of the tournament is like a 40-minute match against another person for a very short goal. The goal needs to take less than an hour. That's the way it's designed. So you're both going in completely cold. You're just giving it a shot. It's a lot of fun, a great way to meet people and find out about games you've probably never heard of either. In addition, there's Cuso Grande, which is a tournament that's put on by my buddy Brosencha. He puts on a tournament that's just bad games. That's all it is. We are going into it expecting it to be just a really terrible experience, but that's funny for the viewers, and it can be funny for you too, probably, unless it's painful. But as a viewer and as a participant, it's incredible on both ends. So there's a lot of options out there for taking this content and making blind races out of it. And this extends far beyond just retro video games. You can play retro video games that you have nostalgia for, you remember, and you say, want to play it again, or it can be a brand new release. Spike mentioned Mega Man 11. I talked about a game that had released that day when I played it. So, I mean, you have a lot of options here for how to make that happen.
And just, you were mentioning tournaments, you can really join any tournament, because even though a lot of the top players will join, you'll see a ton of people that are just starting out in the game joining tournaments as well. So you kind of, you don't have to feel like intimidated, like, oh, I don't have a chance. Like, yeah, you'll probably be able to win some of your matches. You're on even ground with a lot of people that are participating.
For sure. Yeah, I know a lot of people who have actually learned games that they went on to be their main speed game by virtue of a tournament. They said, why not? Let's jump in and we'll learn a little bit and go with it. So that's a really great way. So at this point, maybe you found something that you are a little bit interested in. You maybe want to get started with speedrunning. So the question is really, where do you start now? And I think one of the greatest assets is other people. And nowhere is that better than in the speedrunning community. The speedrunning community has this, I mean, we say community all the time. People say, but we play different games. But the reality is that the mentality in our community is very similar across the board. People want to help you learn their game. People are happy to coach you to finally one day beat them. That's an exciting thing for speedrunners. I'm not fiercely protective of the first place on the leaderboard so much that I'm unwilling to teach you the methods by which you will destroy me. That is perfectly fine by me. And that's true of most of the speedrunning community. Most of the speedrunning community, we run our own Discord servers for each individual game. We have Discord servers for the different randomizers that are out there. There are ways to get in touch with people and find out the things that you need to know to become, a great speedrunner, or at the very least to achieve whatever your personal goals are.
It's pretty easy. You can go to speedrun.com, pick a game that you're interested in. They'll have a Discord server. You can jump in there. You'll find out everything you need to know, just like that.
Yeah, people are really accommodating in that way.
We said it earlier about, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Sinister would be there and want to watch that stream. We love every extra set of eyeballs looking at our game, because you never know who's going to, maybe by accident, maybe by going out there, they'll find the new glitch in your run, a new routing option in your run, maybe just be someone competitive that you can race against. Maybe just one more time on the leaderboards so that there's more visibility of that game. We love more people getting into our games.
Absolutely. And sort of jumping off of that, we enjoy working with other people. We enjoy meeting other people. And one of the big things in the speedrunning community is meetups. We really enjoy getting together as groups. People really like getting to know each other, especially over such, what is at least used to be a very niche hobby. Now it's definitely growing a lot more, but it can be hard to find more speedrunners, especially if you're running less popular games. You know, you go to a Games Done Quick and there are a ton of people there, you know, the 4-letter N-word networking, that's, I mean, it can be tough sometimes. It can be really tough to go out there and get to know more people, but if you run it, they will come.
And if you think your game's too obscure, I mean, yes, you'll see the hundreds of people in the Super Mario Odyssey leaderboard, but you will find that there are people just as excited about games like Barney's Hide and Seek versus Super Mario Odyssey.
Hundreds play that as well. That is like a top 10 most popular speed game.
I can't go on with that. That hurts my soul.
#1 recommended starting speed game. No, you can do it no controller %. It'll be a few seconds behind the
All right, we're trying to make them like speedrunning. Please don't. So that being said, one of the other big things a lot of people ask when they're interested in getting into speedrunning is how expensive it must be. There's a lot of retro hardware, there's a lot of carts out there, and it can be, I mean, the market changes rapidly. It can be tough to find those things. You know, if you want to stream, do you need to stream with an HDI capture card, with an upscaler that turns your original console into HDMI quality? I mean, there's a lot of option for what's out there. And the real answer is that speedrunning can be as expensive as you want it to be. There are a ton of low-cost, affordable options for getting into speedrunning. And I think one of the biggest plays there has been is Nintendo releasing the NES Classic and the SNES Classic. I mean, there's a ton of really great games right there available to you for a pretty affordable price. I mean, they keep reprinting it now. I say keep, it's been twice, but fingers crossed that it'll keep going. They've reprinted them, they've reproduced them, so there's a lot of options out there, right?
And I know most cartridges are actually pretty reasonable if you go to like your local retro game store. There's a lot of those that exist, and you know, you'll find a copy of Yo Noid, for example, for under $10 if you ever want to pick that gem up.
Yeah.
How have we referenced that game 3 times?
Because it's the top game of 2018.
Barney's Hide and Seek, Yo Noid.
Yeah, we're building the whole hierarchy for you here. So, I mean, I think it would be, you'd be hard pressed to say that most of us, I mean, we're very close friends, at least the 5 of us, and I think that's true for a lot of the speedrunning community. I mean, most of my closest friends these days are speedrunners. We have a shared interest, we have a shared love of games, and you know, most of these relationships that you build with people over a mutual stream, for instance, become lifelong friendships. So.
Well, and on that note too, like we even walked in here, and I'm like, wait, we're in the right room, right? And I see like everybody hugging each other. I'm like, yeah, this is the right room. That's pretty reflective of that.
Exactly. Everyone knows everyone. Before, it was just this big group of people. Hey, it's you. So, I mean, that can be true of any convention you go to where there's other speedrunners there. You kind of gravitate towards each other by that shared love of video games.
I think we've always, as a community, stayed pretty grounded. As far as like, I mean, there's a lot of like bigger streamers that have viewers there, and I don't see anybody treating it like, oh, well, some of these people are below me in any way. I don't feel like there's any ego problems. It's, oh, you run my game. I don't care if you have 1 viewer. All of a sudden, I want to get to know you. Naturally, you get to know that person. You build a lot of really good relationships in this community. Very positive.
For sure. So with that, I think that mostly wraps us up on the points we wanted to make. We were going to offer a little bit of time for Q&A. Are there any final thoughts that you guys want to mention about speedrunning before we jump into that?
I just want to mention Yo Noid a 4th time.
I would highly advise people to go to events, Games Done Quick, which we're having our very own GDQX here right now for the first ever time. That's excited. Go to events, meet up with people, go to Discords, communicate. It's fun. It even goes deeper beyond just a game. Just give it a try. Don't be afraid. Everyone there is always willing to help.
I guess what we didn't mention was that aside from just events in general, there's a lot of regional meetups. So, you know, there's one in the Southeast, and there's one in Ohio, and there's one in California. There's a bunch of different events. You know, I just named 3 people, or 3 places, and that's pretty much the whole world there.
Yep. We're done.
And not only that, but there's a lot of online events. There's a lot of online marathons that you can kind of get started in participating if you're maybe not able to travel as easily. And that's another great way to get involved with the community.
For sure. So with that, I guess we can probably move into, if you have any questions you'd like to ask, we are opening the floor to Q&A. We've still got another 20 minutes or so here, so we have some microphones set up if you'd like to
if you wanna-
step up to one to ask a question.
Yep.
Yo, coming up, famed speedrunner, Chris LBC.
So, Spike, I saw you speedran Blind Race of Spyro the Dragon.
Oh,
How
yeah.
did you handle when people try to backseat game? Because that's really common when I find.
Okay. So I'm really, like, I get so tunnel vision when I do not know the game that my chat interactivity is so bad that I never know. People are like, I usually look over and I see someone say, stop spoiling or shut up. And I'm like, all right, I guess something happened there. We got to keep going. I mean, obviously you can put it in your title, no spoilers or whatever. I mean, obviously I think always having good communication skills with your mods, your mod team, to make sure they know what they want it to be. And a lot of people, they don't mean it from a mean-spirited place when they give spoilers. They're just, oh, I'm just trying to help out. I think we all did that at some point as a kid. We saw a friend of ours playing through the game. Oh, you're supposed to go over there. And they're just not even thinking about it. But
Sometimes it's so innocuous too. It'll be someone coming into chat and asking the rest of the chat, oh, has he seen this really great cutscene where this character died yet? And it's like, well, that was maybe a little bit early.
well, he's on the start screen, so. Did you know he died? Anyways.
Yeah, it can be a little bit tough. I mean, I think that's the nature of anytime you're playing something blind or casual on stream is if you haven't seen it before and your chat gets a little too excited. I think that's something that affects all different types of streamers, and it really does take sort of a cooperation both in you sort of being understanding and setting that atmosphere correctly, and in your moderator sort of knowing what to look out for and trying to keep it a little bit clean. You know, I have moderators who they'll purge and then apologize every single time. It's like, I know you probably didn't mean to do anything.
Right.
You didn't mean to do anything wrong, but we're keeping it spoiler free in here. It's usually fast enough that I won't even see it.
Ooh, we got some, yeah, we'll go ahead and use the mics.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. So I was just wondering, so like, let's say you play a game for the first time, you're probably not, timing yourself.
Sure.
So is it usually like the second time around you're timing yourself? And, if you decide you want to speedrun the game, when do you decide to like incorporate like learning routes and learning tech? And, as opposed to just like, I'm just playing the game and trying to be faster than my previous time, right?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that differs from person to person. I know I have a very strong tendency to sort of time myself the first time and then immediately go into some learning process. But I know a lot of streamers out there who will take the approach of, I'm just going to keep improving myself. I'm going to play it over and over. And once I hit a wall, that's where I need to start incorporating new knowledge. So it's really about you personally. I consider myself much more on the side of being a pure speedrunner. So my approach to my streams is definitely much more curated. So I'm definitely trying to practice a lot. But I think that if you're just trying to take some game and make great content out of it, the timer really doesn't have to start playing a role in the stream for weeks and streams after stream. I mean, you can wait until you really finally hit that wall and you say, I just don't know how I'm going to do any better. How did someone beat this in a tenth of the time I just did? That's when you can say, all right, now I've got to find out.
At the end of the day, I think speedrunning is just you play the game a lot. And just all of a sudden, like, don't even worry about what Sinister's doing in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out or what these guys are doing in Super Mario World. Just play it yourself. A lot of times we actually love that because we might notice you doing a strat that no one else ever thought of.
I have learned so much from blind players.
yeah.
It's like, how do you miss that? Like, that's so obvious.
Because we get tunnel vision on, all right, I'm going to watch this route, and then I'm going to do completely copy that. And that's fine if you want to take that route. But I think just playing it over and over and over again, and then eventually, like Oth said, you'll kind of hit a wall and say, all right, let's see what other people do, and you do your homework at that point. But yeah.
I would advise to start with a global timer, just like no slits on it, just one timer for when you start and end the game. And then from there, as you get to feel more comfortable, add splits onto that. And then you'll get to see different segments. And then over time, you'll end up with, like he does, collapsible segments where there's like segments within
Hey, sometimes you just got to know how you're doing, all right? Like,
Every jump, split, 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 split.
But he has a foot split there. He can just
Ooh,
use his
the
foot
foot
to do
split,
that.
man.
all right, we're getting high tech in here. I mean, like, that's the plan.
You don't need to buy a foot splitter.
No.
We can take the next question.
What's your best advice for people who stream around full-time jobs and just general life and can maybe only average 2 streams a week, and that's their only time to play the game?
Yeah, I mean, that can be really tough. I also stream with a full-time job as well, so it can be a little bit harder in that regard. And I definitely understand sort of saying, man, these other people, they're progressing faster, their streams are more successful, and, well, they have more time on their hands. Like, sort of write it off like that. But in reality, you can find time for things. I think that's been actually my advice to myself in the past, is when I say to myself, oh, well, I just really don't have time for a 3-hour session or a stream like that, or I can find 10 minutes to turn on my console and practice something, which is paying it forward into the next stream. So if you say, well, I've only really got enough time, or I'm only willing to take the time for two streams per week, that's perfectly fine. You can make those streams awesome with a little bit of planning ahead of time. You know, maybe you've only got a half an hour, so I'm gonna go watch a tutorial video on how to do some trick, or I'm going to go watch a little bit of the world record run and see what is it they're doing that I'm missing out on, what are the little details. So that kind of practicing can make a big difference. For, you know, if you're wanting to do randomizer, you can use that for some planning. Find better tools that makes it a little easier to do randomizer, or watch really great randomizer runners and figure out what sort of plans are they making along the way. That can be a really great way to find the time, even if you don't have a big block for a big stream.
I would say also that you might, if you're wanting to do shorter games, that can be helpful. Or if you're also wanting to do easier games. Or if they're easy and short, that's even better. Because you'll learn them quickly, and then you'll be able to get into doing the runs pretty quickly, which is essentially what you want to do.
So you're annoyed.
Exactly.
So you know it.
I mean, most of the NES library are 10-minute speedruns. So, you know, maybe you've got these other games that you're really passionate about. Maybe you see some cool NES game and you say, all right, I'll take a shot. That can be 1 hour-and-a-half long stream.
You crank out a lot of attempts. Yeah. You can do a lot of DuckTales runs in an hour and a half.
Another thing you could do is start a weekly race. Maybe have a couple friends and just show up at the same time every week, and then people will start remembering that like clockwork, and then you'll get consistent viewers that way as well.
Absolutely.
And in January, you can use the squads thing to show yourself doing that every week. They'll watch all for it. It'd be cool. Anyways. Yeah.
Thanks.
So, how do you start really going about building a community? Because I run a game called Elebits, and I'm the only runner.
Hey, I like that game.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's a really
I remember
cool
that
speedrun.
game.
And I guess what's different is that I don't have the foundation to build a community, because I run SA2B as well, and there's a lot of foundation there, and I can work off of that. But how do I really get that started? How do I get people to know what Elebits is, other than getting it into a big marathon?
You just did.
Yeah, I mean, finding a platform for yourself can be a huge thing. So you're talking more about finding more runners or more viewers, or both? I mean, I guess.
I guess both, but even more than that, getting people to try it.
Yeah, that can be very tough on its own. So usually using Twitch's discoverability, maybe it's infrequent, but maybe you'll find someone casually trying that game out once a month or something. Going and talking to them and saying, oh man, this game's a ton of fun, I speedrun it, and then maybe people will discover that there is more to it. Maybe they can say, oh yeah, I really did enjoy this game, maybe I want to play it some more. That can be a great platform. Outside of that, introducing new people to it on your stream, you said that you run Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. You know, maybe that pulls in some viewers, people are watching it, and you make the plan to say, okay, for the first hour or two of my stream, I'm gonna play Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. And then once I've got, my regulars are coming in, people are watching it, now I'm going to, at the end of the stream, do an hour of Elebits or something like that, making sure that your community sort of travels across it, so the people who are coming there maybe just for Sonic stick around and see something new that they didn't know they might be interested in.
All right, thank you.
I would say also, just adding to that, patience. It can definitely take time. There was a time when I was actually the only speedrunner of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, believe it or not. So
those were the dark times.
It was a dark. I mean, that was all. Speedrunning was also smaller at that time. But to go along with, you mentioned, if you can't get it into a big event, even if you're just playing it at a big event in the practice room or something like that, people might kind of be like, hey, what's this? And kind of hang out and see, and maybe they'll give it a try that way.
I've run a lot of games that way.
I would also say as well, real quick, Ted, I know I had the luck of name recognition, but the original Star Fox, at the time I was running it, there really wasn't anything. There was maybe one video on Speed Demo's archive, and I'm dating this horribly. But I would say find a trick and maybe export it to YouTube and show people. Like, I discovered this really odd boss kill, and that kind of revived the excitement for the game again. So maybe find a couple features that you feel like people might be interested in, and then you might be able to cultivate a speedrunning community from there, and you can find even more things through other people.
Yeah, I actually had something similar to that happen to me one time. I was making videos for a Games Done Quick submission, and I said, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to make a video where I explain this one trick, just this one trick that I think is really cool, and I want to explain how it works and why I find it so cool. So I just recorded, the game itself, speedrunning it takes 40 minutes or so. I recorded a 3-minute video of just me playing one level and explain the tricks behind it. And I had so many people who found that video and said, wow, I didn't even know that there was all this cool stuff in this game. I wasn't even aware that you could do this. Maybe I've never seen this game before, and it's just really neat. And so finding a way to package it right can be a big part of it.
Thanks, you've given me a lot to think.
Thank you.
Gonna check out Elebits after the convention. I was wondering if you ever get like really far into speedrunning a game, something you get like really invested into, and then you kind of sit back and realize you haven't just played this game as intended normally for a while, and you ever just want to go back and play it normally, either for stream or not.
Have some amnesia.
That's hard. Oh boy.
My advice there, randomizers. See if a
Yeah, I mean,
randomizer, if it exists.
Randomizers, Rom Hacks, that does it.
It's so fresh when you do it that way.
But that is a very real problem. That's something that speedrunners talk about all the time. It's like, I can't even casually play this game anymore. I sit down to casually play Super Mario World, and 20 seconds in, I'm already just doing the same thing. I'm on autopilot again.
Yeah, I did Mega Man Legends for a while, and it's like I try playing it normally, I'm already running diagonally.
Right.
Right.
That can be very tough. I would say to that effect, this idea that in speedrunning there's lots of different categories, so maybe you've only run like the any % category. Sit down and say, I'm going to play it, I'm going to get all the collectibles, or I'm going to challenge myself to beat the whole thing without using this specific item or in this specific way. And that sort of thing turns off the autopilot, and now you can say, I'm going to play this casually again.
It's where a lot of challenge runs come from, one-handed, blindfolded. All of a sudden, how many years were you doing Punch-Out for before you said, I wonder if I can do this without ever seeing the screen?
Couple of years. Pacifist, that's another one. Yeah, all the challenge runs. Even high score. High score can be interesting in certain games too.
And so you've gotten how many years of content out of that game now?
A lot.
A lot of years. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
Sure.
any other questions?
Okay, we won't make you come to the mic this time.
Yeah. I know you were going to say something.
Oh, I just wanted to add one other thing. If you want to grow a game, but nobody's heard of the game, a good step is online marathons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about saying that, but I've been saying too much. Yeah, online marathons, because everyone looks at, I can't shut up. My bad. No, everyone looks at like they want to run into games done quick event. They want to grow their stream, but they also want to have the growth of the game itself, have more people get in there and play it. And there are lots of online marathons to do that through.
Yeah.
So you always don't have to perform in Hollywood. There are lots of off Broadway things you can do to have your game be discovered.
For sure.
All right, so going back to the topic of blind races, not every blind playthrough is going to be the same. You talked about Mega Man 11. Everyone's going to know what to expect from that. What kind of research do you do into games that maybe you're not too familiar with to make sure it's going to be an enjoyable experience and not just 12 hours of why am I playing this game?
Sometimes it's 12 hours of why am I playing this game.
We made a big oops during moment.
I would say talk to Author Blues. He's one of the most well-versed people in, oh my gosh, what the heck is this game kind of game. Like, that is the person you go to for that. Him or Brosentia is well the one who runs Cristo Grande.
The true answer to that question is there are ways to research that. So my typical go-tos when I'm considering possibly blind racing a game, I just want to make sure that I don't get myself into too much trouble. There's a website called How Long to Beat. That can be a really, really good metric. Even if you are going to beat it maybe a little bit faster, a little bit slower than that, that gives you an idea. You know, I had never played Super Metroid before like a year and a half ago. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be impossible. I looked that up and it said 8 hours. I said, all right, I can survive 8 hours even if it's a little more. The other answer I'll give you is that once you become a little bit more comfortable with speedrunning, so once you sort of have a general understanding of it. I don't remember where I learned this little trick a long time ago, but I learned it from someone else, and it's look up the world record and multiply that by 4. That tends to be a pretty good metric.
We've never even had this conversation. That's the exact same thing I do. Oh my God.
I don't remember where I heard it from. It was some other speedrunner who was talking about blind races, and they said the length of the world record times 4, and so far that has been pretty accurate. I will tell you that much. It is almost always less than that amount. Super Metroid notwithstanding.
Times 8 or so.
Sound like every conversation we've ever had at home about video games.
So
So if you're already running a game or if you're already playing a game, what are your best ways of transitioning into a different game? Maybe it's like a completely different genre of speedrun or genre of game in general. Like,
I mean,
how do you approach that?
That's the tough part for a lot of speedrunners. Speedrunners who have made their mark, you're a full-time Super Mario 64 speedrunner, and then you come along and you play Bummin. And how do you make that transition?
That is a real-life transition.
Yeah, a real-life transition that ended up going successfully, because the answer to that tends to be that if you are having fun doing it, that transition's going to go a lot smoother. So first off, it takes a lot of confidence, and a lot of that confidence is not letting it show if you are feeling insecure about how that transition is going to go. So if you go into it excited to play this new game, you go into it excited to speedrun it, learning something new, people are going to feed off of that energy. And that's true of all streaming, really. But the hard part is learning to figure out a way. There's always going to be people who are watching you for you, and always going to be people who are watching you for the game. That's true of most streams, but never more true than with speedrunners who speedrun pretty much one game, is that there are a number of people who are there for the game, and there are a number of people who are there for you. And you don't have to convert that second group. They're going to follow you to whatever you do. The trick is figuring out how to convince the people from the first group that they want to stick around for the other thing. And you can do that a variety of different ways. Start your stream with game A and transition into game B. While you're streaming game A, talk about game B. Be open about your experience with it. Tell people who are already enjoying watching you why they will enjoy watching this other thing, and they'll stick around. They will do it.
Yeah, I agree with everything he just said. Yeah, transitioning in your streams from Spyro the Dragon into Yonoid.
Also, another thing to consider is to have a content stream schedule as well. So maybe designate 1 day a week just for that game. And if it seems to pick up some steam, maybe 2 days a week.
Yeah.
If we mention Noid one more time, that's more mentions than players.
That's more mentions than Fortnite.
That many.
Yeah, I thought we would have overrun that a long time ago.
That ship has sailed.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi. So for somebody who is a variety streamer that has no involvement with speedrunning, and then you finally pick up a speedrun game that you're comfortable with, how do you begin to properly integrate an invested community into something they've never experienced before, being speedrunning? And then a second part to that question is, say you finally found that speedrunning game, what's it like to juggle more than one speedrun game at a time for a channel?
Big oof.
Yeah, I gave a literal oof there.
Yeah, anyone?
As someone that was more variety streamer before I ran Yonoid, try not to mention it, but what I would do is I would play a game first, and transition to it at the end. We would do runs at the end of the night. Transitions really work. And so eventually, Yonoid become more of like, oh, we can start with this game now. And now it's more of a meme, like, hey, when are you going to do the next Yonoid run? Because I kind of, after getting the world record, I'm kind of like, I'm good. It's a great game, don't get me wrong. But transitioning really does work. Like, that's why we keep saying it. So transitioning to a speedrun game, letting them know, like, hey, I'm going to try this out. We're going to see this game. We're going to try it out. It's going to be really fun, hopefully. And then, once you hit your goals and you like speedrunning and you start getting another game, either you swap it out, you're like, hey, we're going to move on to this game, or maybe that's now your main game, and now you move on to another speedrun game. Maybe similar platformer, maybe it's a sequel to the game that you were already playing, but the choice is yours. But transitioning really does work.
Okay.
I think
Go ahead.
Also, just educating them, they're not used to seeing it. Let them understand, why you're doing it, why you're excited about doing it, the tricks that you're doing. Like, kind of give them that insider knowledge. So they're kind of like, oh, okay, I get why this is cool.
Right.
And just seeing the timer also, I mean, that's one of the biggest things. Like, when people see green splits, they just get excited naturally.
Yeah.
To your other question about the speedrunning multiple games at once, that can depend. If you're playing like an incredibly difficult speedrun, it might be hard to do more than one game at a time. But some speedruns are a little easier. You can juggle up to maybe like 2 or 3 and still play them. And also it depends on like if you're trying to play them at the highest level or at a medium level.
Okay.
That can make a difference too.
Okay. Cool. So one thing to add on to that. So you mentioned transitioning. So as a variety streamer who plays a variety of games, like Let's Play style or casually, but say you found one game that's speedrunning. So you found this vested community that likes you for your variety, and then you transition into a single speedrun game. Would it be smarter to eventually transition that into what you start with? since that's the more consistent, and then rotate into your variety casual play?
I mean, I would always suggest that you use the numbers in that order, that you start with whatever's most successful and use that to build a following for the smaller things.
Okay.
If you start with the numbers small and then tell them, I promise at 10 o'clock I'll get to the thing that you're excited about, that's going to work a little less well than if you start off with a thing everyone's excited about and you tell them, hey, at 10, I'm going to play this game. It's really exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun. You should see how it goes. Some of them may go. You know, those people were going to leave one way or another, but some of them will stick around. So,
cool. Thank you.
Cool.
Any other questions?
How do you deal with the tilt?
Oh. that depends on you as a person. That depends on you as a person. Some people handle it better than others. I mean, the answer is out of frustration. Sometimes that's where the transition comes. Sometimes you're playing your game, something goes real wrong, and you can't handle it. Well, I guess it's time for the next game, right?
And the next controller.
Make sure your stream room is carpeted so when you throw your controller like Spike here, it doesn't shatter into pieces.
There's reason he's called Spike.
I know some of us get to this point where we're on tilt, we just change games for the night. We don't have to totally put it down. Just be like, okay, this is not this type of night. Let's move on to another game. I feel like it's something that always helps with tilt, keeps things positive too.
There's a good friend of mine, Sniper King, who mentioned months ago where one thing he wanted to improve about himself was to have flattering rage. Because there's certain types of rage out there where we're all laughing. We kind of always keep grounded that I'm playing a video game. And sometimes, for some people, maybe Sinister 1 is going to get to a lower time in Mega Man 2 faster than I am. But I'm not comparing myself to him. It might take me longer to get to that, to the top of that mountain. And just keep in mind, it didn't happen tonight. Maybe it'll happen the next stream. Maybe it'll be 2 months from now. But there's still a journey I'm going along here. Keeping in mind that, like, you not PBing, that's more content, actually. If you just got it right off the bat and say, well, all right.
Yeah, I've had games I've worked on for months where I was working towards some goal, and you can look at my video broadcast history where the night I got that goal, wow, that game just stopped existing suddenly.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, at that point you might need the break, but it really, I mean, not PBing is almost thanks for more content, right? And even if you get especially close, maybe you're working towards some goal and you were just like, oh, it's 30 seconds off of that. I mean, that's exciting and more content, so.
I've seen you PB by like 0.7 seconds, and then Oglib comes in saying, you never want to PB by too much in all capital.
Which is a good lesson for any of us. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. If you want to follow any of us, go ahead and do so. We're happy to answer any questions. We are happy to help you get involved in speedrunning, find that content that you think is going to fit pretty well for you. If you see us walking around the convention center, and you want to talk a little bit about speedruns, let's talk about speedruns. But with that, I think that we're going to sign off.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly mention, if you want to come hang out at the Warp World booth, we're doing a crowd control test with Skybills in about 30 minutes, so you can see how that works and ask any questions right then and there.
Yeah, it's an open beta now, so you can do it on your stream when you go home.
You too can get killed by chat.
And 24/7 right around the corner, and by 24/7 I mean 24/3 or something. Right around the corner is GDQX. We're doing a bunch of speedruns over there. Mega Man 9 10's about to start. Ocarina of Time 3D, Odyssey, those are all on deck. So
you can get in after hours through the main entrance, and there is also a security checkpoint in the Hilton.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for coming.